Sharon Niederman, your new book, your fourth book, comes out at the beginning of December. It's called New Mexico's Tasty Traditions. This is wonderful.
Thank you, Gwen. May I make one tiny correction? It's actually my 10th book.
Your 10th?
But the 4th I've illustrated with my own photos.
Oh, we were just talking about your photos. This is, you know, it's almost half photography. There are tons of pictures in here. One of the things that struck me about this book is that I think it really captures a part of New Mexico that we don't necessarily often see in these books. You've really tapped into cowboy culture in here, and a lot of, you know, urban Albuquerque culture. So it ties in everything. Tell me about some of the cowboy stories in here.
Sure, Gwen. Well, you know, one reason why I love New Mexico so much, and I think you share my love of it in this way, is that we live in so many parallel universes. And we can go from urban Albuquerque to cowboy culture very quickly, you know? And I've been very, very fortunate to have entree to that culture through my associations with ranch women and the New Mexico Beef Council. And I have always found their lifeways and their stories extremely interesting and inspiring, and I am a real believer in the revitalization and the preservation of urban life. And it's almost like now, with people turning their front yard gardens into tomato patches and apiaries and chicken coops, it's like the rural life is coming to the city.
It is, and so this is it's a, you know, there's a lot of history in here, but it's also very up to the minute. One of the historical things in here that surprised me, there's a recipe for something I don't even know how to pronounce. Potica? Potica?
Yes, that is potica bread, and that's been a great quest of mine. I set out on that quest many years ago to find out what was potica bread. Now let me just say that it is really a cake. It's really not a bread.
I want to call it a bread because I'm going to convince myself that the calories involved in a bread are fewer than those involved in a cake.
That may be why it's called a bread.
Good.
But potica bread was a specialty of people who lived in the coal mining camps. And my quest was to find out, well, is this a Hispanic product? Is it Italian? Is it Slavic? Because all the different cultures seem to make it. And I found out through my research and interviews and, of course, the tasting of many potica breads that it is a Slovenian bread originally, and the people in the mining camps, it was so beloved as a custom at Christmas time and Easter and holidays, taught it to all their neighbors, and it caught on. So you'll find it in areas like the area where I live, Raton. A lot of people have treasured memories of it. In Gallup, where there was coal mining, and all the way up into the Middle West and Wyoming, and any place where there was a mining culture.
Is this something we can get at restaurants now?
I think it's something that you have to have an 80-year-old plus Ukrainian grandma to get it, because you have to be at least 80 years old to be able to roll the dough out thin enough on the dining room table and prick it with your knitting needles.
That is a skill, isn't it?
But there are some younger women taking it up now. It's kind of an all-day deal, as they say on the ranch.
Right. There are some other special things that you've pulled into here. One of the recipes struck me. Chile estilo Nuevo Mexico, which is chicken with lemongrass and chili and caramel sauce. Now, that sounds Vietnamese to me.
Well, I think it's a new twist. One of my goals with the book was to go beyond red and green. There are so many wonderful books that really celebrate all things red and green. And this recipe that you're talking about comes from a very interesting woman, a lady who grew up in Chimayo, left, went to San Francisco, had a career in marketing, and felt that call to come back to Chimayo and take up her grandmother's 6 acres. And she now grows Chimayo chili there from the heirloom seeds, the landrace chili seeds of Chimayo, watered by the local acequias. And she also grows flowers and dries them and makes wonderful, wonderful, beautiful arrangements. So she comes to the local use of chili with the big city spin.
Well, this is magnificent because this looks to me like a dish that I'm familiar with that I think is called caramel chicken or chicken in a clay pot, kind of a, and often done with pork too. I had this in Hanoi, as a matter of fact. But it does have the Chimayo chili, but lemongrass, fish sauce, and caramel sauce. I can't wait to try this. This is not chicken in regular red chili.
It's quite a fusion. It really is. And that's what I loved about doing this book, is I can go deeply into the individual people who shared their stories and their recipes with me so generously, and find out the roots of them. And as you said, the history of the utensils, the history with how things are grown and produced. And I think it's so inspiring that these traditions keep families together, keep people on the land. There's no separation. And in a way, it's all about New Mexico's soul food. And it is where the soul of our culture is. And I think as we go along, and no one knows this better than you, that our personal health and the health of the planet are inseparable. They are one and the same. And I'm amazed to see that even in the couple of years since I began this book, about 3 years ago, began pulling my essays together for it, I had an essay on urban gardeners. And it was kind of a little bit of a kooky idea then, and now we're all doing it. So I think that these ideas are catching on very fast.
So tell me about the process of putting the book together. You wrote, this is published by New Mexico Magazine, and you wrote for New Mexico Magazine for many years, but not all of these started out as stories for there. How did you put this together?
Well, about half the book is started out as assignments from various publications, because I did freelance all over the state for a long, long time. So they start out perhaps as shorter articles for, I remember I did a big story for the Sage magazine of the Albuquerque Journal on women in agriculture, and Sunset magazine, New Mexico magazine, Herb Companion. And about half the book I then went out and specifically wrote for the book. And so I expanded these essays, and they are the result of my wanderings and meanderings for 20 years all over the state, and finding those great little roadside cafes and just following my instincts, following my bliss, you might say.
Well, they make you seem very lucky. I'm envious. I want to go back and retrace all of your steps here. It just is a chronicle of what looks like a whole bunch of grand experiments. We were talking earlier, you were so nice to bring me a jar of jam, and I've been looking at your choke cherry section here. I have had some magnificent choke cherry jams and sauces and syrups up north in New Mexico, and this has got me excited to do it.
Well, yeah, that's a story on foraging that originally appeared in the Herb Companion. And as you know, I live up north, and my husband is a local, born and raised Northeast New Mexico, Colfax County guy, and he grew up foraging, so he's taught me a lot about it. He grew up foraging for mushrooms and dandelions, and now it is one of our great summer, fall pleasures to go foraging in Cimarron Canyon. And this year alone we found wild plums. I think I brought you a jar of wild plum, and choke cherries, and wild apricots, and also apples. In addition, this year, when up in Sugar Canyon, I have also found wild raspberries, dandelions, and there's a lot to it. You really feel like you're in the Garden of Eden when you're out there hunting, and you realize that the Great Spirit has provided us with such a wealth and such an abundance, and it's up to us to cherish it and care for it and appreciate it. So my mother-in-law, now deceased, taught us how to make the jelly, and now it's our family tradition.
You know, choke cherries, I haven't seen them on the bush, but they look to me like currants. Do they have, and they have a similar flavor, quite tart?
Quite tart, and actually inedible unless they're prepared. They have to be dried or cooked. Interesting, in my research I found out that the choke cherry was pounded together with buffalo meat and dried and rolled up, and it became pemmican, which became a staple.
The acidity of the berries would have helped to preserve it, huh?
And became a perfect traveling food.
Now, this is your 10th book. I won't ask you how many years ago it was that you published your first, but more than 10.
That's safe.
Tell me just for a minute, how has the publishing business changed since you started in the book industry?
Well, I think we all know that publishing is in a huge transition right now, and I can just speak about it from my own point of view. I think by concentrating in a niche, which I have, and I believe about writing that we each have our own path and we have to follow that. It just seems to me that by exploring and celebrating a particular niche, I have been able to go forward with the book projects I have wanted to. My next book coming out after this one, the one I'm working on right now, is called Shrines and Signs, Spiritual Journeys Across New Mexico, which is another visit to many, many festivals and ceremonies, and is a thrilling book to put together. And then there's one coming online right after that having to do with a cache of papers and photos I have found buried in the Raton Public Library, revealing photos of Lucian Maxwell and the Maxwell Land Grant and many, many wonderful documents that have been forgotten. And that's in the process of becoming another book. So I guess as far as the publishing industry goes, yes, I now have 2 blogs. Yes, I Facebook like crazy, and I love, you're my Facebook friend, Gwen. I love social media. And I just think you have to be open to each one as it comes along, and to not be afraid of change, and not to be afraid of learning the new technologies. I just took a blogging workshop last weekend, as a matter of fact. And I'm looking at doing some ebooks out of little essays I'm putting together right now.
I've read your blog. I think you're great at blogging.
Thank you, Gwen. Thank you very much.
So are you collecting ideas through social media? Are you doing crowdsourcing for some of your recipes, or for ideas for places to go and visit for your new books? Are you getting ideas on Facebook?
I get lots of ideas, and I love sharing ideas on Facebook, absolutely, and recipes too, for sure. And they will be on my new blog, which is called New Mexico's Tasty Traditions.
That, you know,
WordPress.
This has changed so much even since I started writing, when people would send me recipes printed on paper in the mail. Nobody does that anymore.
No, 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 no. All I can say is open your arms and embrace it, and it's totally rich and abundant as any other form. As my friend Miriam Sagan says, there is a straight line between the mimeograph machine and the blog. Yeah. And it's opening up ways of expression, but they're not necessarily what we grew up with or learned about in school.
So how are you going to celebrate the publication of this book?
Oh my gosh, are you asking me where I'm going to eat after the first book signing?
Well, that's a good question. Tell me, where are you going to eat?
I'm debating a few places, actually. The first one will be in Santa Fe at Collected Works at 4 o'clock, December 4th. The Albuquerque kickoff, please come if you can. It will be at Bookworks on Rio Grande at 3 o'clock, Sunday, December 5th. So then there'll be another signing in Las Vegas on December 12th at Tome on the Range. And I really want to give thanks and credit to my wonderful team. My designer, Betty Brodsky, is responsible very much for the look of the book, and I'm so grateful to her for allowing me to sit beside her and collaborate, and the wonderful way she interpreted my ideas for the book. And that's why I started taking pictures, Gwen. As you know, you're on assignment, and a photographer gets sent. And so often, the photos that come out are not in line with what you had in mind for your story. So I thought, I better start taking my own pictures. And so Betty Brodsky did a fabulous job with that, and my editor, of course, my longtime editor, collaborator, and friend, Emily Drbansky at New Mexico Magazine. I'm very grateful to them for being so receptive to my ideas and working with me on them.
Well, congratulations on the book, and thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you so much, Gwen. See you soon.